Yeah, hello everybody. This is Tarik from Frankfurt. Soar Financial here speaking. With me in the call is Philippe Cloutier from Cartier Resources in Quebec. I think it's time now, but we will wait 3 minutes. So, you know, in Germany we always speak about the academic minutes, the 15 minutes from the academics. So, but this is a web call, and I think 3 minutes is okay. You always have the opportunity to write me questions. You can use the chat on the right side, and you will find the presentation of Philippe also on the right side. Okay, yes. Ja, guten Tag auch an die Deutschen. We have some German registrations too, so I'll translate sometimes. A little bit. Ja, hallo auch nach Deutschland. Tarik aus Frankfurt. Ich sehe schon einige bekannte Namen. Schön, dass Sie sich eingewählt haben oder ihr. Wir warten noch 2, 3 Minuten. Akademisches Viertel gibt es beim Webcall nicht, aber 3 Minuten können wir, glaube ich, jedem gönnen. Manchmal gibt es ja Unterbrechungen, da immer noch viele im Homeoffice sind. Ich kann mal aus Frankfurt berichten. Hier sind, glaube ich, immer noch 70-80% im Homeoffice, weil wir sind ja auch eine Dienstleistungsstadt, Banken, Finanzen etc. Die Straßen sind immer noch relativ leer und dann ist es auch okay. Ja, okay, warten wir einfach nochmal 2 Minuten. Auch für die deutschen Zuhörer und Teilnehmer. Rechts finden Sie die Präsentation auch als PDF für sich, aber Philippe wird gleich seinen Bildschirm anmachen. Und rechts finden Sie auch die Funktion Chat beziehungsweise Fragen. Da können Sie mir Fragen stellen. Und im Anschluss an die Präsentation wollen wir versuchen, möglichst viele Fragen zu beantworten. Genau. Yeah, we just wait, Philippe, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, and then we'll start.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay, vielleicht zum Start schon mal, Philippe ist im Urlaub, ist zwar zu Hause, aber eigentlich ist er im Urlaub und er checkt natürlich auch seine Mails in den nächsten Wochen, aber der macht tatsächlich mal Urlaub. Und es kann sein, dass das Haustelefon mal klingelt und die haben einen Sturm in Quebec. Quebec ist ganz flach, das bedeutet, das ist anders als bei uns, da wird alles aufgewühlt, da ist es laut, da kann auch mal der Strom ausfallen. Also falls der irgendwann angeblich in 1 Stunde etwa ausfällt, dann hoffe ich aber, dass wir auch dann durch sind. Ja, okay. Just before starting, Philippe is in Val d'Or now, where he lives in his home office, but officially vacation, Philippe, is that right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Oh, you can switch on your
show the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe just a few words to Cartier.
Okay.
Cartier Resources is a gold exploration company from Quebec with 4 projects. The flagship project at the Chimo mine, a former mine which produced gold, I think 397,000 ounces till 1997.
Yes.
And Philippe and his company had the opportunity to buy Chimo for just some bucks. I think 200,000 or 300,000, something like that. Some years ago, when the gold price was down and the market was nearly dead. Today, the gold price is it was 5 minutes before at 1,762. So we are only $3 from the high 7.5 years ago. So it's good times for gold explorers and gold miners. And Chimo, there's a lot of infrastructure. It's in the middle of Val d'Or. You know, there are a lot of mines around them, and there's a city of Val d'Or, sure. And okay, Philippe, so start with your presentation, and afterwards we'll do the Q&A. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Listen, I will skip through the boilerplate slides. This is our team. Myself on the left, our CFO, Gaëtan Lavalière, our VP, and Ronan Deroff, our senior geologist, and myself, a director as well, with the board of directors below here. This slide I will emphasize just a bit. This is slide number 4. We have currently $5.4 million in the bank, and we are waiting for another 630,000 by September or October from the Quebec revenue and the government as credits. So we have a very healthy cash position. We have, of that amount, there's $500,000 flow through, and that flow through is reserved strictly for exploration, and that exploration it will take care of the remaining diamond drilling that we're conducting, and then we'll also fund the engineering work and the third resource estimate for the Chimo mine project. I will skip slide number 5 because I will develop on that in the presentation. Simply to remind you on slide 6 where the Chimo mine project is located. It is right off the highway within a 35-minute drive from downtown Val-d'Or. You could see in pink here Eldorado's Lamaque mine, the Gold X mine, Westo mine is right here on the lake, and the project is well within driving distance of 5 under capacity mills owned by 5 different owners in the along the Cadillac Fault. Again, this slide I will skip because I will be discussing that with graphical aids. Slide number 8. Well, I think the party really started when we delivered our first resource estimate in Q4 2019. We delivered 880,000 ounces of gold at the past producing Chimo mine. It is significant because if you remember, Agnico Eagle took a position in us in December 2016 with a $4.5 million investment. They had 19% of our shares. At that time, they had 2 years remaining producing at the Lapa mine, which is 50 kilometers down the highway here on the Cadillac Fault. And in December 2018, sure enough, they ceased production at Lapa mine, and they had produced 825,000 ounces of gold. So it was a little nod and a wink in that direction that our first resource estimate exceeded the production at Lapa. In Q2 of 2020, just a month and a half ago, we put out a second resource, and that grew the ounce count at Chimo to nearly 1.2 million ounces. We're tracking right now at $11 Canadian per ounce delineation. We think, and this is what I'm going to show you in the rest of the presentation, that by the end of the summer and announcing in Q4 2020, that we will likely reach a target of about 1.7 and hopefully maybe even 2 million ounces at Chimo. We're using a price of gold of US $1,300 per ounce and a cutoff grade of 2.5 grams per ton. You'll see where that comes into play. Another way of showing that slide is this approach. Again, reminder that we're using a price of gold of $1,300 US per ounce for our resource estimate work and a cutoff grade of 2.5. The historical production at Chimo mine is about 400,000 ounces of gold. At the time it was closed in 1997, it was not for lack of ore, but because the price of gold in 1997 was roughly $275 to $300 US. And it was barely breaking even at that time. And so on this slide, as you move from left to right, the bottom left image is basically an image that shows the 3 gold corridors at that time: a northern corridor, a central corridor, and to the south there, a southern gold corridor. In our first resource estimate, we basically produced a resource that was twice the historical production, and you could see the red and the blue that just basically grew around the central gold corridor, red being indicated resource and blue being inferred resource. In May, we produced yet another resource estimate, and this time we brought in the north and the south gold corridors. And then the resource grew to 1.2 million ounces, essentially 3 times the historical production at Chimo. What we're saying is, with drilling, with internal engineering work that we're doing, the third resource estimate will likely produce a resource that is in the vicinity of 4 times, minimally 4 times the historical production. So we're gunning for more than 1.6 and hopefully 2 million ounces. And the rest of the presentation is going to be how we aim at doing that. Just before we get to that, slide 10. We were encouraged to compare ourselves to our peers, and you can see the various companies at the bottom there. Cartier is currently trading, or we're estimated at being $25 Canadian per ounce versus our peers that have $55 Canadian per ounce. And that range of ounce, that selling price that you see there, well, that was borrowed from an interview that the CFO of Agnico responded to in an interview just at around the PDAC 2020, when he was asked, well, what do you actually pay for ounces in the ground when you take over a project or a company? And his response was, well, just a range of about $100 to $150 Canadian per ounce. And so so based on that, what we've done is we've generated what we believe we should be trading at. We take our cash position, you take the number of ounces that we have established at in May of 2020 of 1.2 million ounces. You multiply that by either $100 or $150 Canadian, and that gives you a range of what our market cap should be with respect to the asset that we do have. And so therein lies our value proposition is we think we should be trading north of 66 to maybe $1 Canadian per share, yet we're still trading in the 20 cent range. Although we've tracked up recently, we've basically just mirrored what most juniors that are looking for gold in the Abitibi have done. And so our share price, we believe, although it's gone up in the recent weeks, still does not reflect the fact that the market still hasn't caught on to what we're working on. The timeline, what we've done, what we're doing, and what we aim to do in the next few months, and why we think you should continue to look at Cartier as an investment opportunity. Well, we purchased the project, and Tarik, you mentioned what we purchased it at. Well, we actually paid $261,000 for this past producing mine.
Between 200
yeah. So it was actually 261,000 ounces, $261,000 for, well, you'll see how many ounces that we're tracking at. And then we drilled. We're going to hit the 60,000 meter mark in the next few weeks, entirely within 500 meter radius laterally and at depth of the shaft. We produced a first and a second resource estimate. The drilling continues today. Shortly, the drill program will be finished, and the results of that program will be added to the third resource estimate. But we will also add the results or the indicative features of the project that we're seeing through the internal engineering work that we're doing, as well as the industrial sorting of the mineralization. And the drilling, the resource, and the engineering will produce yet a third resource estimate by the end of the year. So what you have to look forward to is additional drill results, results from the technical engineering work that we're doing, and yet a third resource estimate that we believe will be anywhere between 1.7 and 2 million ounces, hopefully. The three gold corridors, again, the only reason I show this is to show you the breadth of the system. Mining originally started in the 1960s on the northern corridor, and that's why the shaft is located in the north corridor. Thereafter, mining progressed at depth, at surface and at depth on the central gold corridor, which was our first resource estimate. And then they actually drifted out to the southern gold corridor here and started mining as well. So there's infrastructure in accessing all three gold corridors, and you can see that's almost 650 meters wide by over 1.5 kilometers. I'll present this table basically in the next slide, but that is what was published in on May 5 this year, and last week we rendered public and filed on CEDAR the 43-101 of this resource estimate. So there you have it. I mean, that basically is a picture is worth, well, there's actually 4 pictures. A picture is worth 1,000 words, so you've got 4,000 words there. The central, where my cursor is right now, that central panel basically shows you the central gold corridor. There's a shaft that goes right down the past producing mine. And you can see that most of the resources indicated and inferred were in the central gold corridor, were hovering around what they had produced. And so the new area that we're drilling is just 400 meters east of that, 450 meters east of that, and can be accessed eventually in year 5, 6, or 7 of mining by putting a horizontal drift out into this area, and likely conducting additional exploration from underground. So when we developed this target area, we basically copy pasted the surface target area of the old mine and designed a program to repeat that, because basically what we were seeing in this little resource block here was exactly the same type of mineralization that had been mined at Chimo mine. If you look to the right of that, you'll see the 3 gold corridors: the north, the central, and the south, again with the shaft. And only a few drifts are shown here because there's actually 19 levels, and it would be just too cluttered if we had put everything there. And to the left of the slide, you could see on the top part, the northern gold corridor, and to the south, to the bottom, the southern gold corridor. The potential there is obviously enormous, because we haven't drilled at depth on either the north and the south gold corridors, and we do know that it will most likely behave like the central gold corridor. So this thing could keep growing and growing. It's just that we feel that by now we've done a significant amount of heavy lifting, and the market is in play for a project like Chimo. Just a quick word on the mineralization at Chimo. Historically, in what most people know of the Abitibi, is this, what's indicated here in red, high-grade quartz vein. Well, yeah, and that's nice because it produced nice headlines, 15, 20 grammars and stuff like that. But at Chimo, as in most other mines, that stuff is rather limited in volume. And in Chimo's case, it accounts for basically just about 25% of the gold that was produced there. The greater amount of the gold is actually produced in the wall rocks, where a high volume of rock is mineralized with constant low to average grades of 3 to 4 to 5 grams, and that produces 75% of the gold. And well, you could see why this is important to understand, because in looking at how we're going to play with the lowering the cutoff grades at Chimo, you could actually mine deep into these wall rocks, increase the recovery of gold, and while you're reducing the OPEX costs. And the beauty at Chimo is that the mineralogical contrast here of the mineralization lends itself very well to ore sorting technologies. We actually sent a 270 kilogram sample or group of samples to the Steinart mineralization sorting facilities in Kentucky, and we received that recently, and we're in the final processes of comparing the grades with what the machine was able to sort. The other thing that we're doing, obviously, is we're addressing the issue of the infrastructure that's in place versus the resource estimate. One of the very first questions that we needed to answer was, what is the hoisting capacity of that shaft? And then to determine the maximum hoisting capacity from the shaft with the existing underground infrastructure. Well, that project was completed with a positive conclusion, and basically that shaft can haul up to 5,000 tons per day with minimal refurbishment. We're currently looking at making that report public. The sub project to that is to determine the optimal or the stope configuration that would allow for the optimal recuperation of the results of the resource. Keep in mind that the infrastructure accesses to the north, the south, and the central corridor on multi-levels. So it's not a situation where you've got a shaft and you're going to have a bottleneck. We've found ways around that, and one of the ways is to lower the cutoff grade to recuperate the maximum amount of ounces. And then the final project is, well, to design a mining schedule to feed the maximum hoisting rate at surface. So there you have it in one picture. You drill, you mine, you hoist, you set up sorting mineralization sorting plants at surface in order to bump the underground grade to a higher grade, and then that's the stuff that you send to the local mills. And so you cut in half the tonnage. And so you're reducing transportation, you're reducing milling, you're basically not going to have any restoration because you do not build a tailings impoundment site at Chimo. You do not build a mill. So the whole scheme here and the multiple moving parts is to reduce the production costs, reduce the capital expenditure costs, while increasing the gold that's produced at Chimo. And obviously, one of the nice values is that you're going to have very minimal impact on the environment. But once that's done, people tend to say, well, what happens next? Well, what happens next is that we actually purchased a total of 4 deposits. So we have the Benoit deposit, the Fenton deposit, and the Wilson deposit, and they are in what is now seen as an emerging gold district, the Windfall district, that is heavily invested in by Kirkland Lake and Cisco. And these projects have the same characteristics as Chimo in that these are large volumes of rock, mineralized and at a constant grade. And so these projects have legs, and they're basically drill ready. So it's not like we're a one-trick pony and Chimo's the end of the story. This continues. Before I sign off, I'll just leave you on this because we've been criticized as not being able to market this very well, and people want to hear and see high grades. There's a sample of visible gold taken from zone 5B, level 17, that graded over 108 grams per ton over 2-meter width. It's a sample that was shown to us by the mine geologist at the time in 1995, Mr. Tony Brisson. And he also pointed out to the fact that, yes, indeed, Chimo has a few of these jewel boxes, but that we would be well advised to consider the mineralization in the wall rock. And so the takeaway from my presentation here is that throughout the summer, you're going to get news flow from diamond drilling that is ongoing. You're going to get news flow from internal engineering that we hope to make public. And then ultimately, you're also going to get a third resource estimate from the Chimo mine project. We've also initiated work on the Benoit project in the terms of an internal resource review. So that's it. If you have any questions, I'm sure Tarik will field them in German or in English, and I'm here to answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Philippe. It was a good presentation. I think we have some new guests. So for some of the race people, it's the first time that they listened to you and saw the presentation. Yeah, and I've got the first question. So, I mean, it's what you said at the end. What's the plan for the summer? So drilling, you will see the 60,000 meters in the next weeks you told us before. Maybe you just speak a little bit about the drilling program at Chimo and what we can expect there, because we had in spring we had some weeks with, or you had drill results every 2 or 3 weeks. Will it be?
Okay. Listen, there's 2 drills at surface, and they're drilling this panel down in here, where you can see the yellow dots and the yellow boxes. Before the COVID suspension of activities, we had started to produce drill results that indicated that what we're drilling is behaving exactly like the mine, the old mine. And so then COVID hit, the lab shut down, the drilling shut. Fortunately, we had samples in the lab, and those were the ones that the minute the suspension was lifted, those were the ones that we published, and we came out with 22 grams over 2 meters, and 32 grams over 2 meters, and 20 grams over 4 meters. It's really impressive stuff. But you got to keep in mind that again, we're intersecting stuff like 7 grams over 12. These are really wide widths and interesting grades. So in the next few weeks, in the next week actually, the program is wrapping down, and in the next weeks that will follow that, throughout July and August, you will see drill results come in from this area down in here. And then that drilling, which has not been included in any of the resource estimate work, will be included in the 3rd resource estimate work, along with a new consideration of a cutoff grade and engineering considerations as well. So you have news flow from drilling, news flow from internal engineering, and news flow from resource estimate strictly on the Chimo project. And then you could get news from potentially the Benoit project. And well, hopefully that would be nice, M&A, or a transaction.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means that this project is under the watchful eye of gold producers that feel that this project can be brought into production relatively rapidly, owing to the fact that it's proximal to infrastructure, proximal to qualified workforce, in a mining-friendly district, and ultimately can be fast-tracked essentially because the permitting process in this case would not be lengthy, because you're actually not designing, or you're not thinking of building a new environmental scar, but actually using pre-permitted mills locally.
Okay. We have got a question to the coming resource estimation. Q4, you said. What do you think? Early Q4, late Q4? Do you have a clue about that?
I would like to give an indication, but ultimately, when you mandate engineers and resource estimate people, and it comes into play with the whole notion of independent QP. If I could tell you a precise date, which I would like to, it would just basically blow the whole notion of independence away, because I would be calling the shots. So I'd rather say, and I'm very comfortable in saying, that it will be in Q4. I think it'll be early to mid Q4, and not late, like in mid-December, but definitely in Q4 this year. But by then, obviously, Tarik and the viewers, all of the drilling information will be out there. Some of the internal engineering information will be out there, and a lot of people will have guessed where that's going. And so I guess the only thing that keeps us up at night is what's the price of gold going to be doing? If it keeps going up, what do I think? I think there's a lot of turmoil on the planet these days, be it COVID, be it the Black Lives Matter situation, being political unrest all over the planet. I think there's a high likelihood that gold will keep going up. but that's not my area of expertise. And obviously I'm biased and I have a serious conflict of
Yeah.
interest in calling that shot. But I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
honestly, that's the only thing that keeps us up at night, because technically speaking, we said we'd drill this, we said we'd deliver resource estimate, and we said we are going to bring this as far along as we could. We've delivered every single time. The rest is out of my hands.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Good answer. Maybe I can add something, because Bank of America said, 6 weeks before, we will see 3,000 and the gold price in 18 months. Goldman Sachs said we will see the 1,800 in the
Yeah.
next months,
Okay.
and maybe the 2,000 next year. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's optimism coming from the analyst side, and we have a good analyst here in Germany. I'm not sure if you know him. It's Markus Busler.
Yeah.
Marcus
Yes, I know Marcus.
wrote last week, you know Marcus, yeah.
Yes.
Marcus wrote last week that he's very, very confident that we will see a new high in US dollar this year. So
Okay, well, we're
I think
using
that's
1300. We're using 1300 US gold, and
yeah.
so we're using a very conservative approach, and that's also part of the value proposition. We're conservative and we're technically oriented, and we're trying to get the story out there and do more marketing. But I think the most important part is if we focus on the technical, and we deliver as we've done, the market will end up discovering us, and then it's all uphill from that.
Okay. Yeah, just as a quick reminder, you have still the possibility to send me questions. On the right side of your screen, you will see the possibility you can write it in, and I can ask Philippe. Sie können immer noch Fragen stellen. Auf der rechten Seite im Kasten ist ein Fragekasten. Einfach schreiben. Ich frage dann Philippe. Vielleicht ganz kurz. Philippe konzentriert sich auf das Technische. Wir werden auf jeden Fall im Q4 eine neue Ressourcenschätzung sehen. Und wir haben ja in dem Slide gesehen, er geht von 1,7 Millionen aus. Wenn es gut läuft, sind wir auf 2 Millionen Unzen. Und wir sind ja in Chimo, haben wir schon momentan etwa 50% in der höherwertigen Ressource, also nicht nur inferred, sondern auch indicated. Das ist sehr gut, weil die Mine ja auch in einer optimalen Lage ist. Philippe, vielleicht noch eine Frage an Philippe zum Aktionär. Oh, just one more question.
Mhm.
2 questions. To additional for the reduced the cutoff grade, you have a table in the financial statement with 2.5 and 1.5. What is the condition or reduce from 1.5 to 5? Technical question.
Well, usually when a resource estimate group do their work, what they do is they do their work, and then they put in what they call a sensitivity analysis, and they put in various cutoff grades. And one of the it came to us as a suggestion, says, why do you guys use 2.5? I mean, if you reduce your cutoff grade by a gram, you go to 1.5, you're barely lowering the grade of the mineralization to like 3.5 or something like that, and you're adding 480,000 extra ounces without 1 extra meter of diamond drilling. So it's well worth it's well worth considering lowering the cutoff grade. Will it end up being 1.2 or 1.6? That's the work that is being done in Project 1A. Configure the stopes to try to get the most of the mineralization, because the block model does indicate where the mineralization starts and finishes, right? So they're actually doing that, and it's trial and error, and it's trade-offs. And what we're looking at is to create the most amount of ounces for the least investment to get them out. And so it's well worth the few tens of thousands of dollars that we're investing right now with engineers and resource people to track those ounces down. Does that answer your question?
I hope so. If not,
I think so.
then ask me again. I have a question on my phone. It's not through the chat. Can you just describe your relationship to Agnico Eagle, your biggest shareholder?
It's good
Just
actually
like how you work together. I mean,
yeah.
they have 70 or more than 70%.
Listen, it's good actually, and it was a relationship that was developed well before their investment in 2016. The people, the technical people that work at Agnico are obviously, we don't need to boast their technical merits. These people have a very strong and robust signature to growth, their corporate growth, and their offices and most of their personnel happen to be in Val d'Or. So we have frequent meetings with them, and it's very beneficial to us, obviously, because it's kind of free consulting when we design exploration programs and we bounce ideas off of them. As a junior, we don't necessarily have all the senior company outlooks, and they do, and they offer that. And recently, in discussion with other parties, we've repeated that process, and that's to the benefit of the Chimo mine project. So the relationship is excellent. It's very civil. Sometimes we do take some of their advice, sometimes we don't. And the reason sometimes that we don't is that we guard our cash very carefully as this business develops, and we're very cognizant that they don't have the same cash issues as us. They have an investor rights agreement with us, and that gives them two rights. The first being, as long as they own over 10% of our stock, they have the opportunity to maintain their pro rata and increase up to 19.9. And the second right that they have is ultimately to put somebody on the board of directors of Cartier, and they historically have never done that, and that's a reflection of the fact that I think they believe that and that we do good work, and yeah, it's an excellent relationship. We feel very privileged to have that.
Thanks. Vielleicht noch ganz kurz, jemand hat mich übers Telefon gefragt, wie die Beziehung zu Agnico ist, zum Großaktionär, und Fakt ist, sie können, solange sie über 10% halten, pro Rata bei jeder Finanzierung mitmachen, sodass sie ihren Anteil halten können. Und sie haben das Recht, jemanden in den Board zu senden, das, was sie bisher nicht genutzt haben. Philippe wertet das auch als Zeichen des Vertrauens. Agnico betreibt mehrere Mühlen in der Umgebung und ist so ein bisschen für viele im Markt auch sowas wie der natürliche Aufkäufer dieses Projekts, weil man Verarbeitungsanlagen hat, man hat dort Minen, die Malartic Mine und anderes, und insofern eine gute Beziehung zwischen beiden Unternehmen. Genau, aber jetzt nichts, was sich aktuell geändert hat. Okay, good.
They could,
no more question. Yep.
Well, listen, Tarik and Kai, anybody would like to give me a call or send me an email, I will respond. I keep an eye on my emails, and shareholders first. So if you think of a question in a week or so, just refer to the presentation, call me, and I'll answer the best I can.
Okay, thank you. So you can send me and Kai 2 emails if you want to, or you can have the direct contact with Philippe. Ja, Sie können immer noch mir oder Kai schreiben, falls Sie im Nachgang noch Fragen haben. Und Sie können natürlich auch Philippe direkt kontaktieren. Das ist kein Problem. Wir können da auch gerne noch einen persönlichen Call einrichten. Okay, so I don't
thank you very much,
any
everybody.
questions. Yeah. Thank you very much, Philippe. Thank you very much to everybody who was viewing this presentation. And yeah, if you have a question, don't hesitate to ask me or Kai or Philippe, and contact us directly. And stay safe and healthy. Ja, vielen Dank für Ihre Teilnahme. Vielen Dank, Philippe. Und wie gesagt, im Nachhinein können Sie gerne uns alle kontaktieren und Fragen stellen. Wir sind für Sie da, auch in diesen Zeiten. Und ja, bleiben Sie gesund und sicher. Dankeschön.
Thank you.
Thank you.